I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the sins of the underworld. We're Ireland's top podcast for 2025, and now we've got a new website. So if you want to learn more about crime and criminals, if you want stories, extras, and podcast subscriber specials, go to www.crimeworld.com.
So domestic violence has really hit the news this week with one case, and it's a case involving a serving guard at the time called Trevor Bulger, who beat up his wife, who was also a guard. And after 12 years of legal shenanigans, he got a suspended sentence. And I suppose it highlights, a couple of things, just the reality of what that woman went through, and also the complications and how the state deal with domestic violence. So, Gwen, you've come in to talk to us today, I suppose, about, as an author and as somebody who has successfully managed to get out of that situation. When you hear, I suppose, domestic violence cases, does it bring it all back to you?
It can do sometimes, but hearing about domestic violence stories is quite sporadic unless something like this has happened, unless somebody has been really harmed. So it's not spoken about enough.
Yeah.
Only when something really bad happens.
And exactly, because this case is actually in some ways really, really normal. They're going through the courts every day of the week. Most of these cases are anonymous, and most of them don't make national news. There's unique sort of circumstances to this, just because they were both gardaí. But there's no less horrific cases going through all the time that don't get any attention. And we are really suffering from an epidemic of domestic violence.
Yeah, and society as it is at the moment is quite narcissistic. Everything is really narcissistic.
Yeah.
And I think courts see these cases day in, day out.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't think that they're dealt with appropriately, because the onus seems to be always on the abuser. Let's get him or her fixed. Send them to a bit of counselling, maybe a few weeks in prison, suspended sentence, whatever. But they're allowed to come back out and re-abuse.
Yeah.
Because these people do not change.
No.
And I think the victims are almost always forgotten about.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough support systems in place.
No.
For me, I can speak personally to this, that when I did contact Women's Aid and I waited for a place in a refuge, I had to wait 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And 3 weeks of where am I supposed to go? Where am I supposed to stay with children?
Yeah.
And this is every day in society. This goes on.
So to go back to the circumstances, Gwen, in which you met your abuser, at that stage you'd been in a marriage that had come to an end, as happens to people. You already had 3 kids. Tell us, I suppose, how you met him and what sort of, I suppose, drew you to him even initially?
At the time I met him, I had been through some very personal stuff. There had been 2 deaths in my family.
Yeah.
And I was quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
And my marriage had ended. And I had now kind of known this guy on and off through Facebook.
Yeah.
And he pursued me.
Yeah.
At the time, I was so vulnerable, and I thought, oh my God, he's listening to me. He is empathetic. He's kind. He's charming. He was charming.
Yeah.
And of course, when you're in that kind of vulnerable state, you're going to look for somebody to come in and help you.
Yeah.
And knight in shining armor. And we started the relationship, and I thought it was a mutually respectful relationship, loving relationship. And it wasn't until I was right in the thick of it that I realised, oh my God, this is abusive. I am being domestically abused.
And how long did it, I suppose, take for these sort of red flags to start to emerge?
I suppose in the very beginning, I did notice that his temper would kind of flare up and flare down, but it was never taken out on me. So he seemed to be kind of unbalanced, but, I was painting red flags green, as we tend to do.
And what do you mean by that? You mean that you saw something and you thought,
yeah. So
there's a reason for this.
Yes, of course. You're kind of saying, you must be having a bad day.
Yeah.
It'll be okay tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is not about me. This is, he has something going on or whatever. You just make excuses for his behaviour.
Yeah.
But he did tell me in the very beginning that he couldn't have any more children.
Yeah.
And I didn't want any more children.
Yeah.
I had 3 and I just wanted to kind of get on with my life and focus on them and focus on what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I found myself pregnant.
Yeah.
And that was like a gut punch because he knew I didn't want any more children.
And he told you like he wasn't physically capable of having any more children.
Yeah, he told me that he had a childhood injury.
Yeah.
That he couldn't have any more children.
And do you think like, having a child with you was a way for him to sort of retain control? Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the main reasons men can do this to women, is to have a total hold on them forever.
Because you are tied till the child is 18 one way or another.
Yeah.
So when you got pregnant, how long had you been with him at that stage?
Less than a year.
Yeah.
And previous to this, I had gotten pregnant as well.
Yeah.
And I had a miscarriage because there was an argument. I can't even remember what it was over.
Yeah.
But I got a punch to the face so hard that I fell on the ground. And the next day I had a miscarriage.
Really? God.
And that was horrific in itself.
Yeah.
But by that stage, I knew there was something wrong and I just couldn't put my finger on it. Because I was never around domestic abuse. I didn't ever experience that. And because my marriage ended and because I was with this man now, and in my head I was like, this is God's way of punishing me. This is a punishment in some form, if that even makes sense. At that stage, the psychological damage was starting to happen.
Yeah. So that's an horrific tale where somebody punches in, you lose a child. No matter what the circumstances. Was that the first time he had laid hands on you in that way? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the first time.
And at that moment, are you thinking, you must on some level know this isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
But are you also then talking to yourself with a second voice saying, maybe it was this, maybe it was that? Is that how it worked?
Yeah. And they call it cognitive dissonance. So it's kind of a fight between your heart and your head.
Yeah.
I thought I loved him.
Yeah.
But my head was saying, this is not right.
Yeah.
This is not right. And at that stage, where was I supposed to go?
Yeah. These are all a factor, aren't they?
Yeah.
And he hit you.
Yeah.
Right? What's his approach after that moment? Is he apologetic? Is he?
He'd probably go missing.
Yeah.
For it could be a few hours or maybe a day or two.
Yeah.
Come back. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. This is my fault. What can I do to, and it would be all better again.
Yeah. And would you then think, he's come to a realization that, and this is a once off, maybe work or something like that drove him to this?
I absolutely did think like that.
Yeah.
At no point at that stage did I think it was my fault.
Yeah.
But I definitely thought something was going on with him, and I thought maybe is he going through a mental health crisis? Anything.
Yeah.
Anything. I just didn't want to actually look at what was the problem.
So when you first met him, Gwen, like obviously when you meet somebody, you only know what they present to you.
Yeah.
You don't. If you want to get to know me, live with me, as they say.
Yeah.
So, but he presumably didn't present as a controlling and volatile person.
No, it was actually the opposite. He presented himself as a very compassionate, empathetic, loving, hardworking man.
But a lot of these guys, and this goes for people that are involved in all sorts of, not just violence, but other types of abuse, they tend to have, when they tell you their story about their lives, they tend to have been victims of all sorts of, injustices, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and that's probably what he would have done as well. He did tell me that, his ex was crazy, and not just his ex, there was a few of them.
Yeah.
They were all mad, they were all crazy. He wasn't to blame for anything. Didn't get on with his family. He was the victim. He portrayed himself as the victim, and I did feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
And I think a part of me wanted to kind of make him better or kind of fix him in some way.
And so the very first moment where you saw that explosion of temper, And the way it tends to happen, of course, is you see the explosion, but you don't maybe see physical violence initially. And I suppose it's kind of almost a test for him, is it? That he, if you stay after that.
Yeah. Pushing boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can you think of a moment like that something like that happened?
Yeah, I mean, there was a time before that incident where he would have raised his voice and, maybe I can't explain it to you, but there was a time he may have raised his voice or whatever, and I would have been in shock, and then he'd, sorry about that, oh my God, I'm having a bad day, oh God, and kind of brush it away. So I didn't think anything of it, really.
Yeah. And in terms of like the controlling behaviour, did that go alongside the violence?
Well, coercive control is the major silent thing of abuse, because for me, I wasn't allowed to work.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to see my family. I wasn't allowed to see my friends. I wasn't allowed to put on makeup.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of control that these people have over you. They take complete control of your autonomy.
Yeah.
Of your complete being, actually.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen straight away. It happens over time in increments.
Yeah.
So you don't realise that's what's happening until one day you say, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You're afraid to talk.
Yeah.
You're afraid to ask questions. You're afraid to do anything.
So you're living on eggshells.
Yeah.
And so, Gwen, you've written a book, obviously, and you're able to talk about this now so strongly. But how do you think that you got into this circumstance, if you know what I mean? Was it something that he saw in you? Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I think everything stems back from our childhoods.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
And circumstances and trauma that has happened to us in our childhood carries us through into adulthood, and that's how we see the world.
Yeah.
That's what shapes our relationships. And my mum died when I was 3.
Yeah.
So growing up, I felt very, very lonely.
Yeah.
My dad was there. I had my siblings there, and we loved each other. But if there's no maternal figure around, especially for a little girl, you don't have any kind of guidance in the world. So as I grew up, I was just looking for somebody to kind of love me.
Yeah.
To see me, to hear me. So I would latch on to anything and anybody who would show me like affection.
Yeah.
And I would misread that for love.
Yeah.
So people like abusers, they can smell that a mile away. They can smell that vulnerability and they will take advantage.
So it's like almost like a radar, really, is it?
Yes, it is 100%.
So if we move on to your story, then, so that first time he hits you and has catastrophic consequences and must have been absolutely terrible, because obviously to lose a child and then also to try and process being violently assaulted. What was going through your head at that moment? Were you telling people in your life what had happened?
No, I wasn't, because by that point I was so ashamed of how my life had ended up.
Yeah.
My marriage had ended.
Yeah.
I had 3 kids. I was with this man who I knew there was something wrong.
Yeah.
Something wrong. And I was just ashamed to tell anybody. And I mean, there was so many instances of violence after that even. I mean, I remember getting a punch into the mouth where he moved my teeth.
Yeah.
I had a retainer and the retainer moved. When I was pregnant again, I was physically assaulted during that pregnancy. And after that pregnancy, I had a C-section, and I go into it in the book.
Yeah.
I came home from hospital. I was in pain. It's a major operation. And my 3 children went to their dad. And I had the baby on my lap, and he just got up and he left. And he left me for, I think it was 4 days straight. I had no money. I barely had any milk. There was no heating. And I just remember I cried and cried and cried. And I still didn't pick up the phone to tell anybody because I was so ashamed.
Yeah.
And I suppose psychologically, having a baby is a big, big thing.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a really happy time in a person's life. And I was so miserable and so sad and so depressed. And when he did come home, I said, "Where were you?" And my God, just World War III broke out. I
Yeah.
was chased out to the front garden with my baby in my arms. He pulled at my top so hard that the strap broke, and I was exposed, and I was screaming, and there was people watching, and he dragged me back into the house, and I was so afraid. And he was like walking around me like a predator.
Yeah.
At its prey, and he was enjoying it.
In terms of like the intimidation.
The intimidation.
Yeah.
And I had his brand new baby in my arms. And eventually he stopped and he went back upstairs. And a little while after that, there was a knock at the door and there was 3 guards standing there. And I swear to God, I was never so happy to see 3 guards in my life.
And somebody had called them, obviously, who had seen what had gone on.
The next door neighbour heard what was going on. And the guard said, the reason they called us was because when they heard you screaming and then you stopped, they thought you were dead.
God. So at that moment, what's going through your head? Do you think, will I tell them? Or are you worried about the consequences of telling them? Or
yeah, I was torn, but at that stage, it had to stop, and I didn't know how to stop it.
Yeah.
And I remember the vanguard. I don't know if you call them vanguards.
I don't think you do, but we can. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She came in and there was 2 other guards there. They went straight upstairs to where he was, and she took the baby off me. And put the baby in the crib, and she hugged me. And I cried, and I just told her, and she said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Because I don't have anywhere to go." And she said, "This is no way to live.
No,
this is no way to live." So she told me about Women's Aid, and you know, she kind of put me on the right road.
But did you get on that road straight away?
No, I didn't.
And so at all of these moments, you can look at it, right? And people will look at it and say, well, why didn't you? And that's the bit they struggle to understand. Do you think?
Absolutely. And it used to annoy me when people would say, why did you stay for so long? They don't understand the psychological impact, number one, that abuse has.
Yeah.
Do you know that like this kind of abuse alters your brain?
Yeah.
And it's a documented fact because of the constant trauma, it rewires your brain. So
this is what they call the trauma bond,
it's a trauma bond.
Yeah.
And that term gets thrown around like willy-nilly. And so the narcissist term, not everybody's a narcissist, but certainly there are abusers.
Yeah.
But the reason I didn't leave straight away was, number one, I had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I had family, but who's going to take in 4 kids and that trouble?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not that my family saw me like that. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Number 2, I had no money.
Yeah.
You know, he had taken all my money, you know, all the kids' money, birthday money, you name it.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out a plan. And this is what I say to people all the time. If you're thinking about leaving one of these relationships, you really need to be careful and to make a plan, because this is the stage where it's so dangerous for a woman to leave. This is where women are murdered and hurt.
And of course we see that. I mean, even this week there's cases coming through the courts, and we're not speaking specifically about your ex, but there are other cases coming through the courts, even just one yesterday involving a Brazilian woman who had broken up with her ex and ultimately he killed her. So that is a moment of, you know, people maybe don't understand that fear exists, and it's not a fully irrational fear, is it?
No, it's not an irrational fear at all.
Yeah.
And this brings me to my other point, is that also, you know, you don't have any money, so, you know, you're financially tied to this person. Number 2, where are you supposed to go? So when you leave an abusive relationship, and say, for instance, I went into a refuge, and I was so lucky that between the refuge and South Dublin County Council, they helped me to get a HAP house.
Yeah.
Which I'm eternally grateful for. Women who don't have that, where are they supposed to go? They don't have anywhere to go. I know women who have been living in their cars with their kids. And so some women are forced back into a house with their abusers to be continually abused.
Yeah.
So this needs to be highlighted, housing around people coming out of refuges and domestic abuse, because people die, Niall.
They do.
People are dying because of this, and it's not being spoken about.
No. But if you look at the psychological bit that's going on for you there, right? So, because that is the real complex bit, isn't it?
It is.
You know, on that level, at that moment, this person is a bad person he'll probably, at that point, if you come to the understanding, he's not going to change. Have you?
Oh, absolutely.
At that point.
At that point.
But the circumstances are holding you there, and also probably your own fear and stuff like that. So when and how did you get to the point where you finally brought it to an end? And
Yeah.
maybe how did you even within yourself, like?
Yeah. Well, it started that particular incident where the guards were there, and the lady told me about Women's Aid, and I kept that in a file in my head.
Yeah.
And the abuse continued to the point where I got so sick. I was so depressed, beyond depressed. I actually had a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
And I woke up one day and I said, I want to kill myself. I wanted to die. It was horrific. And I remember my sister coming up to the house for the first time in a long, long time, because nobody came up near the house. And she told him to get me to the hospital and she would take the baby, which he did. And I saw a psychiatrist. Didn't tell her the full story, but told her enough. And she sent me home with meds. And I knew this was like make or break, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it was a week later, I went up for a shower. My kids were downstairs and I heard my son shouting, and I came rushing down, and he had started to go for my children.
And what age are they now at this stage?
Well, they're older now.
Yeah.
The two lads are in their 20s, and I have a teenager and a little girl who's the boss now.
Yeah.
But back then, I mean, she was newborn.
Yeah. So they were teenagers.
They were teenagers.
Older.
They were 15.
Yeah.
14, 15 and 8. 8, a newborn. But I came down, and I think I said it to somebody before. I was so physically and mentally broken that you could have done whatever you wanted to me.
Yeah.
But you do not go near my children. I had that in my mind. I still had that wherewithal. Don't touch my children. And that was the point where I said enough is enough. And we got out.
In the run up to that, like, had the physical violence become constant?
No, and this is the thing that I want to say as well, that these relationships aren't constantly violent.
Because if they were, people would leave them quicker.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And this is the thing people don't understand, I suppose, sometimes. And when you talk to people, it's nearly the irregularity of it that is so confusing, really, is it?
It's a constant roller coaster. It's the constant highs and constant lows. And there's more lows than there are highs. But when you're out of it, it's mad the way the trauma bond works, because your brain just only thinks about the good times.
Yeah.
Only.
Yeah.
Not about the bad times. Your brain tries to protect you. And that was like that for me. But I could never go back. I mean, I couldn't go back there.
No. So your kids, were they had they seen all of this? Did they and you know, presumably they were terrified of him, were they? Or
absolutely terrified of him.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrified. And a big part of me to this day still feels very guilty for kind of putting him in that position in the first place. But I did the best I could.
Yeah. Like us all.
Like us all.
Yeah.
And I think that's an awful lot. An awful lot of it where women, especially women, because I know it happens to men too, but I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
But women do feel an awful lot of guilt and shame for staying there.
Yeah.
But as I say, what else can she do? Where else can she go?
Yeah.
You know?
So you get to that point and you come down the stairs. Is he was abusing drugs and all throughout all of this as well, was he, in terms
of... and I had no idea when I met him that
Yeah.
he was a chronic cocaine user.
Yeah.
And I don't touch anything like that.
Yeah.
I barely drink. But when I was 5 months pregnant, money was missing out of my account. And he had access to my bank cards and everything. And I found out he was taking all my money.
And if you confronted him about it, what would he say?
I did. That day, I noticed that there was money taken out of my account at the local shop.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like €10, it was like €200 or something. And it was money that I used to save for the kids for Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas money.
Yeah.
Christmas money.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going down to the shop to see if they have CCTV. And he said, I'll come with you. And he came down. And just as I got out of the car, he said, I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
And we came home and he said, look, I'm a cocaine user. And he told me. I nearly died.
Yeah.
Because I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
This man's a cocaine user. My money is going missing. There's other kids in the mix. Good God, what am I going to do? You know, it was horrific.
Yeah.
I can't articulate it to you how horrific it was.
Yeah. So you come down the stairs and is he committing violence or threatening violence?
He's
at least?
screaming, he's shouting, he's going for my younger son.
Yeah.
I get in the middle. I get in the middle of him, and there's a lot of screaming and shouting, and he gets in the car and he goes, I thought he was gone. I said, okay, kids, round everything up, throw everything into black plastic bags. As we were packing the keeping in mind my newborn was still only a new baby, throwing everything in black plastic bags. And with that, we heard this noise, and he came around the corner in his car. It was actually my car.
Yeah.
Into the front garden and tried to ram his way into the front of the house, where we screamed the place down. It was absolutely terrifying. The neighbours were out. He came into the house. He had a hold of me and the baby, and he said, I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere without me. You're not going with my baby. He was using expletives and shouting and swearing at my other kids.
And was he out of his head at this point?
No.
Or this is just pure rage?
This is pure rage.
Yeah.
This is pure rage. And if somebody, I think one of my kids called their dad, who arrived at the door, and at that point he got us out, and he called the police, he called the guards as well. It's a bit of a haze. I do remember coming out to the front garden. I was on another planet at that stage. It was the shock, the trauma, everything. I just wanted my kids to be okay and not to see any more of this. That's how it ended.
And is that the last time you saw him? You probably saw him in other things to do with the kids. But that was the moment. And what year is that now at that stage, Gwen?
That's gone back 2019, maybe?
2019, so 6-7 years.
It's a long time ago.
So at that moment, do you start to recover?
No. It took me about 3 or 4 years to completely get over everything, to process everything.
So obviously, presumably your mental health recovered in that time, but it's for you to, have an understanding of what happened, why it happened, and, how you got into that circumstance. Is that what you mean by taking that amount of time?
Yeah, because I was under the care of Women's Aid for a long time, and I had a key worker who was a lifeline for me. And I underwent counselling and therapy, very intense, to understand what was it in me that these people saw in me that they could take advantage, I suppose. And it took a long time because it was stuff I didn't want to look at, from my childhood even. But you have to. You have to, in order to understand yourself, to understand somebody else.
And what did you learn, I suppose, about suffering abuse and also an abuser? And I know that's a really complicated question, but there are, as you said, personality traits maybe in an abuser that maybe they're not obvious, but maybe you would see them now in a different. If you came across a person like that,
you can tell them a mile away.
And what are those traits, I suppose?
Egocentric. Very full on.
Yeah.
Very. I can't find the words right now.
Yeah.
But I know. I can tell a mile away.
So when you mean full on, you mean maybe love bombing, as they always say.
Yeah, love bombing. And that's not just even in a romantic setting or an intimate setting. That's in everything.
Yeah.
That could be in a friendship where you can be loved bombed in a friendship. You can be loved bombed in a professional setting.
Yeah.
But you can tell them a mile away.
Yeah.
I can.
So it took that amount of time, and presumably it took more time again to get yourself back on your feet and to rebuild your life.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to rebuild your life, is it?
No, it's not. We went into the refuge after that situation. We were there for 3 months with some women who I describe as angels.
Yeah.
These women are just amazing. And they helped me, number one, understand the wheel of abuse.
Yeah.
How it starts, what it is.
And what is the wheel of abuse, if you were?
So it starts off, it's the love bombing phase, the honeymoon phase. Goes into, I can't remember the actual terms now, but where the violence starts.
Yeah.
And then devalue.
Yeah.
And then they come back.
Yeah.
So it's a wheel.
So the idea is, I suppose, that you'd start off love bombing. You're the greatest person that this person has ever met. You're the answer to all of life's problems. And devalue is where all of a sudden you're a person of a terrible person.
You're not shiny anymore.
Exactly. And that's I suppose how, you try and placate them by going back to being the person that they love bombed, really, is it? Or that's how they seek to keep you unsteady.
Yeah, they do. They keep you unsteady. And like that, it's a psychological game.
Yeah.
They idealize you in the very beginning. You are the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Soulmates.
Yeah.
And that word is said very, very quickly within a relationship.
Yeah.
Have you been all my life? You're my soulmate.
Yeah.
After 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
No.
That goes on for about maybe 3 months in the initial stage. And then you start to be devalued. So you're not shiny anymore. You're not new anymore. You're made to feel that's your fault.
Yeah.
You're not enough. You might be, they might say things like, you're not young enough. You're not thin enough.
Yeah.
You're not enough. And it plants that seed in your head. Oh my God, this is my fault.
Yeah.
And then you're looking inwards going, okay, how can I get this man back to the beginning? How, you're constantly trying to do everything you can for this person to get them back to the love bombing stage. That's gone.
Yeah.
It's never going to get back there. And another thing I want to say is that the person that you meet in the beginning of these relationships, they don't exist.
Yeah.
And that's very hard to come to terms with. Like I say in the book, when I did all these, the counselling and the therapy, to look back and realise that I had grieved like he was dead. I had to think like he was dead because he was. He didn't exist in the beginning. It was a mask.
Yeah.
It was he was an actor.
Yeah.
That's very hard to come to terms with.
Yeah, and probably an actor, almost focusing his role on what you wanted. He could probably act in a totally different way with somebody else.
Well, these people, that's what they do. And they will tell you what you want to hear. They will be what you want to be, what they think you want to be, until you're reeled in. And then it's, they take what they can from you.
How did this, externalize? Because you've spoken about, I know, in RTE about surgery and all of that. Did that all play a role in that, where it, that loss of self-esteem, I suppose, is it?
Yeah. And this is the thing that sticks with you forever, because, when you get a punch into the head or the face, you stand with somebody and that bruise is going to fade. The psychological scars stay with you forever.
Yeah.
Even now, sometimes I'm surprised by it. And, I looked in the mirror and I saw somebody that was getting older, not attractive, because these were his words.
Yeah.
Not attractive enough, too old.
Yeah.
Who'd want you with all your baggage?
Yeah.
It made me just feel like I was absolutely worthless. And I thought, if I went for surgery on my eyes and maybe I'd look a bit better, a bit brighter. And unfortunately, that didn't work out either.
Yeah.
But it's the words that stay with you forever.
Yeah. But you've, of course, found your own words now in your book.
Yeah.
Tell us about writing that, when you started to write it, and why you chose to write it, I suppose. Because it's a big deal putting yourself out there.
It is a big deal. I took part in a documentary, I think it was back in 2020, for Women's Aid in conjunction with RTE, and it was called A Year in Lockdown. And it followed a few women about life in lockdown. And they asked, would I tell my story? So I agreed to, I took part in it. And the producer took me to one side and said, did you ever think about writing a book? And I said, no. And he said, you should.
Yeah.
You absolutely should. So I thought about it for a while, and I was discussing it with my key worker. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it, because if my story gets out to one person, that's my job done. And my message is that, life is very short, Niall. We only have one go, and you have to make the most of it. And you're unique. Nobody else is going to be you. This is your life, and make the most of it. And don't let anybody overpower you. And love doesn't equal abuse.
No. So the book has gone really well. I mean, did you take your time to sit down and write it? Did it?
It took about 2 years actually to come together, because like that, there was things that I'd forgotten about that, when I was writing the book, I would remember, and I had to, it was tough, emotionally tough. I actually got an anxiety writing it, because when I was remembering a few things, But I did it, and I self-published it. And I think I didn't go to an editor or anything like that because this is my story.
Yeah.
And I'd been controlled for so long, and I didn't want anybody else to control my story.
Yeah.
And I published it last May, and the feedback I've gotten is just overwhelming.
And tell us the name of the book, of course, and where people can buy it.
It's called The Quiet Place, A Tale of Domestic Abuse, and it's available on Amazon, Kindle, and the Winding Stair Bookshop.
Very good. And how did people in your own life respond to the book? Because obviously you spoke about keeping this hidden, which is really standard, isn't it? I mean, it's nearly always the case. I don't know what percentages people will give, but most people downplay it because for two reasons. As you said, they feel ashamed because people automatically think, oh, I shouldn't be in this circumstance and people are going to look down on me. And also then probably in part protecting the abuser.
Yeah.
You don't want people to think badly of it. But now it's in book form. Did people in your life read it, and what was their reaction?
I told my siblings and my children because I wouldn't have done it if they were uncomfortable with it, because it goes back to my childhood as well. So there's, but my kids were so supportive.
Yeah.
They're so supportive. And actually my 15-year-old at the time helped me with the cover of the book. So they were all involved in it. My siblings, I was so nervous about telling. But my sisters read the book. My brothers, everybody was fine with it. But particularly my sisters, they said that they were so proud of me, and they loved it.
Yeah. So has it been a healing experience then, Gwen, you think? Because obviously you've gone from a place of deep shame and now you're coming on podcasts and you're an author. Do you feel that you've let those feelings go, or?
I do. And the way I describe it is when you come out of something so dark like abuse, it's like childbirth. That's how I describe it, because it's uncomfortable, it's painful, but you come out a new person, and it's a brand new sheet. And it's yours, and you decide what you want to do. And what I decided to do was to help people, vulnerable people, spread the word about domestic violence and domestic abuse. And another thing is, I tell my kids all the time as well, that if you do something nice for somebody, one thing, every day, your world gets a little bit better and a little bit brighter. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks, Gwen. That was great, really interesting. And we'll leave a mention of the book in the description. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
If you are already a subscriber to crimeworld.com, you've probably binged on our 6-part deep dive into the life and the rise of the dapper Don Christy Kinahan. From the streets of Dublin to the head of a global cartel, what made and moulded the ambitious Kinahan? And where is he now as he runs from the law? For those of you who haven't joined us yet, here's a short extract from our exclusive series, which is just a click away. So we're going to do a rest here. We're going to start this tome, which is the sort of the life and crimes of Christy Kinahan Sr., who has to be the most fascinating individual in the entire sort of Kinahan cartel set. He is an intriguing character, to say the least.
I think he's the most interesting of all the gangland criminals, really, if you see where he's come from and where he's ended up, and how he's managed to navigate through all of those eras of organised crime. An incredible story. If he was involved in another arena of life, he'd be regarded as a kind of an heroic businessman. But of course he's not. He's involved in a murderous cartel. But an incredible story. And
there's a little bit of intrigue and mystery to his background, which we're going to go into. Some of it is clear, and other bits, the stories that go around the mix, and you can never, like, for example, some people would say he was a heroin addict. I know he did tell the courts at one point that he did that, but he did it for a reason. And the reason was he wanted a free education.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very interesting, the heroin addict, and maybe we'll come back to that.
We'll come back to it, because that is something that, certainly some people close to him say that was never the case.
Yeah.
And those who are sort of, I suppose, become his enemies in more recent times would definitely say that, like it's a
stick to beat him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's other little bits that are unusual. We'll start and we'll go through as much as we know factually, and then we'll also discuss the rumours. So he's born in 1957. He's 6 years older than Jerry the Monk Hutch, which just gives him a little bit of a, we can see where he is. He's what I would always say was into the bosom of a respectable middle-class family. Now, some intrigue comes with this. His father, to my understanding, was a taxi driver who worked the Gresham rank on Stephen's Green. And that would have been a good job.
That would have been a good job, a well-earning job. Certainly taxis, back in the day when taxis were protected. His father was also at some point registered, or went, I think, on as a dairy farm manager, and also people would say he was involved in kind of street trading. Not, as a lot of people in Dublin would have been over the years, involved in some stalls and selling in that sort of arena. So Christy Kinnan is raised in Cabra, but his birth cert says that he was born in England, in a place called Perryvale, near Ealing, I think, in London. So this is the late 1950s, when at that time in Irish history, we were, there was high unemployment. A huge number of people left Ireland to go to England at times to get work. Many of them returned, but that would have been one of the big points of emigration, where young couples got married and went over there. Certainly, Christy Kinnan wasn't raised in England, but he certainly does seem to have lived there at times. He's had connections to Birmingham and that sort of area, maybe all his life. So he's described, I suppose, as having a middle class upbringing.
Well, I suppose the first house that we can look upon that we know he was in as a child, and he was the only boy in a family of 3 girls, Denise, Maria and Sally Ann. The mother appears to run a B&B from what is a generous Edwardian house. Do you know the name of the road?
Charleville Road.
Charleville Road.
So, I mean, yeah, I know it well. I mean, I would have grown up very close to there. I mean, those houses are worth a huge amount of money. Now, like a lot of houses in that area, for example, those big houses on the North Circular Road, which aren't far away, there probably would have been times where you would have picked them up at a bargain price, but it would be at very, very far away from some of the figures we've discussed. For example, the grinding poverty in which Jerry Hutch would have been born into. Certainly Christy Kinnan would have been raised in something that's now worth a huge amount of money, that home. And it's
would they have always been a middle class sort of a home? We're using that term very loosely here. That's part of East Cabra. Yeah. Right now, if you walk through East Cabra now, you can't. There's organic coffee shops and all of that sort of stuff, and houses being sold for routinely close to $500,000. Like back in the 60s, it wouldn't have been so much like that, I think. And those houses, like a lot of places in sort of Stony Batter or somewhere like that, those houses wouldn't have been seen as posh houses. Would a taxi driver's wage have bought that house?
Well, it would have. It would be far, far bigger than most houses in that area, and would have cost a lot of money. But I suppose it's a different context, and Cabra would have been different then. Christy Kinnan would have been growing up in the 60s, early 70s when he's a teenager, and Cabra at that stage would have been a lot kind of wilder, I suppose. Like a lot of areas, there was a lot of homes built at one stage, and young people grew up, and it certainly would be a far more settled area, just like places like Crumlin and Drimnagh have become far more settled as the time has gone on. So he would have been brought up in an area that I wouldn't describe as being a sort of upper middle class area. He would have been grown up in a working class area, in a big house in a working class area, really.
And yeah, it's the big house.
Yeah.
It's an impressive looking house. It always would have been. We do have some suggestion that the family originally lived in St. Teresa's Gardens.
Yeah.
To go from St. Teresa's Gardens to Cabra and to this Edwardian period property is a huge leap.
It is a huge leap, and people would have said to me, for example, that the connection between the Kavanagh and the Kinnan family, for example, has always been a bit.
Bomber Kavanagh's parents.
Bomber Kavanagh's parents would have known Christy Kinnan's dad. They would have been friendly. All those people have no involvement in crime. There's no suggestion of that, but that it would have been, I suppose, maybe not as straightforward as this is he's a middle class guy. It's somewhere along that line, I suppose. And like most Irish people have, the poverty is only one generation away, I suppose.
Well, he certainly had aspirations, and he was very smart. In school. Though it is said, and it just shows you when somebody gets as big a news story as Christy Kinahan that his leaving cert results have been made public. Do you know that? Didn't know that.
And maybe not made public, but the Sun did a story about how he actually failed his leaving.
Right.
So Christy Kinahan, look, there's no doubt about him being smart, but certainly that was said that he only passed 2 subjects. He would have gone to, it said he went to Declan's in Cabra first and got expelled, and then went to O'Connell's in the North Inner City. Now, O'Connell's Christian Brothers School, probably one of the most famous schools in Dublin. My own father would have gone there. People would have got a scholarship, and it would have seemed to have been a really prestigious school. Past pupils would have included James Joyce, Pat Kenny, the broadcaster, former Taoiseach Sean Lamass, PJ Mara. Also, interestingly, and probably a relative contemporary of Christy Kinahan would have been Tony Gregory would have gone there, who would play a huge prominent role in the anti-drugs marches in the city. So he would have gone. He would have, again, that would have been sort of a prestigious school. But he seems to have not thrived. And then I think we get into a bit of a grey area when he leaves school.
But he excelled, apparently, at sport and at kickboxing.
Yes, and that was a thing that he kept up, I think, through all his life, one way or another. And obviously his sons would have a huge interest in boxing as well.
If you liked what you just heard, go to crimeworld.com now and subscribe for more ad-free listening, exclusive content, and the best crime stories around.